and welcome. We are the Scottish Youth Film Foundation. I'm Rachel and this is Keir. We're broadcasting live from the Scottish Parliament.
We're here to bring you the latest news from the Festival of Politics. Coming up on our first broadcast.
Coming up on tonight's show, we have...
I sat down with world famous percussionist Dame Evelyn Glennie.
And I just sort of accidentally, so pushed against it, really.
And last week, we witnessed firsthand an unexpected protest outside Parliament.
Glued their hands to the ground, preventing entrance to the building. And finally, we got an advanced preview of the WordPress Photo exhibition and spoke to its curator. We have an excellent show coming up.
But first, here's a little bit about us. Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm from Glasgow and I wanted to do this because I'm very interested in politics and I want to use media to help bring it in an accessible form to young people. And I think this would be a very interesting opportunity to do that and to work with like-minded people and learn their views as well on politics and take their experiences and learn from that.
Hi, I'm Jake and I'm from Lockerbie and I wanted to do this because of the opportunity to be in a high intensive experience, working with cameras and with exciting people.
I'm Nadia. I live in West Hill, and the reason why I took part in the Festival of Politics is to improve my camera operating skills and editing skills.
Hi, I'm Keir. I'm from Tyne in the Highlands, but I'm now studying international relations at Edinburgh. I wanted to do this because I'm very passionate about politics. It's something I've been involved in, and journalism is a career that I'd also love to go into, so just a brilliant opportunity all around.
Hi, I'm Erin, I'm 21 and I'm from Edinburgh. I'm currently studying Gaelic and politics and I'm really interested in working in media once I graduate, which is why I want to take part in this.
Hi, my name is Ivan, I'm from Ukraine, but I live in Aberdeen and study in North East Scotland College. I came here to see a big cameras.
I'm now joined by Nadia. Now you know a bit about all of us, we're now going to move on to our venue for this week, the Scottish Parliament building. Our next section outlines some of its history, as well as the opinions of those visiting the building.
The Festival of Politics is held at the Scottish Parliament each year. But what is the Scottish Parliament? First we have to go back to 1978, when the Labour government at the time put forward a law to create a Scottish Assembly. However, the act was scrapped when the Conservative government came into power in 1979. In September 1997, there was a referendum deciding if Scotland should have its own government, and the result showed a 74% in favour. And so on July 1st, 1999, the Scottish Parliament officially opened its doors. This meant that Scotland would have control over things like education, healthcare and housing, while the UK government has power over things such as national security and immigration.
We asked the general public what they thought about the Scottish Parliament.
The Scottish Parliament is great, and the fields that Scottish Parliament decides, I think, are very important about the education, about the environment.
I felt like they were very inclusive, like they were going for, like I saw they were including like blind and mute inclusivity. I saw the poster about like gay rights, so I feel like they're really about the people and for the people.
I love it. I mean, the building itself is fantastic, and the fact that it's elected through proportional representation is something I really like. I think it's a much more equitable system.
I think the entire setup for like the tourists and sightseeing and everything, I think it's really great, and the fact that there's so much information in just one area, and it just helps like tourists like me for us to learn more.
Really enjoy coming here. It's always an engaging time, and then I just think the architecture as well is amazing. Barcelona architect done a great job.
I'm here for Festival of Politics. I'm here for about 2 days. I'm visiting the lectures, and it's so interesting, really. I love to study new information about Scottish Parliament.
It's an impressive structure.
I remember all the the drama surrounding how much it was costing and everything. But each time I come, I see something new, and I just love the design of it. I think the fact that it's a modern Parliament, and because we're doing something new here, I think it's fantastic.
I'm particularly interested in the actual building itself, the architecture of it, and learning how the government in the UK works.
The people come here quite a lot, meet my colleagues as well. We generally come to talk about national issues and so on, so it gives us an opportunity to talk to MSPs and colleagues about the issues that are most important to us.
Plays a great role in the development of society.
The Festival of Politics here at the Parliament kicked off with an in-conversation with Dame Evelyn Glennie.
I was there at the event and had the privilege of speaking with her afterwards. Hi, I'm Keir with the Scottish Youth Film Foundation, and today I'm joined by the amazingly talented Dame Evelyn Glennie. Despite being profoundly deaf, she's gone on to have an amazing career as a solo percussionist, the first person to maintain a career in that field. Your ability to communicate with a wide range of audiences is really astounding, whether you're in Scotland or further afield. How has this influenced your understanding of music as a universal language?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that travel teaches you is finding the common things that link us and finding those bridges, really. And music definitely is one that whereby the spoken word can be a barrier, but you can have a group of people, sitting playing the same piece of music, and we're all communicating with each other. And it's quite powerful to be in that situation.
So music has the brilliant ability to evoke emotion and memories in people. How do you personally experience and interpret emotions through sound in your own performances?
That's a really interesting question. A live performance is quite a complicated procedure, to be honest, because you've practiced something in the privacy of your own four walls, usually alone, and then suddenly you have to display what you have practiced to an audience. So that in itself, that the performance is going to be different. So you can't just plant what you've done there and plonk it on a stage. So you've really got to accept that an audience brings something to the interpretation. The feelings just range from that sense of slight nervousness, where you're waiting to go on, so you feel a tad nervous, but then that connection with the audience, they change everything.
So as a performer then, that must make every performance unique in a way when you're travelling. Does that present different challenges, I guess, when you're performing in certain parts of the world or to certain audiences?
Yes, I think so. I mean, obviously when you're travelling, you're taking into consideration all different kinds of things. So it could be jet lag, it could be the temperature, it could be the atmosphere, it could be the acoustics of a place, it could be the quality of the instruments.
So you've been involved actively in music education and advocacy for a number of years. What message would you give to perhaps aspiring musicians, and how has your involvement in this informed your view of music as a tool for positive change?
Well, I think in a way we're all teachers, if that makes sense. So, I love working with young people because they're coming out with new ideas, new thoughts, new approaches, new developments, whatever. And I just find that really inspiring. So in a way, they're my teachers. But at the same time, historically, you're looking at how things have progressed over time. And so a lot of the older players, they're also, you can learn so much from them. And then, of course, your own peers and colleagues. And it's quite fascinating when you can just see the world as one great big huge kind of college in a way, or a school. So yeah, that's just really important. And you know, we can all be part of making a difference. And I really feel, you know, it could be something that a 5-year-old says, and you just think, oh, you know what, I hadn't really thought about that. And I think this is a wonderful thing about music. It's a fluid subject. It's changing, you know, all of the time. New things are coming out all of the time. You know, there's just this whirlpool of ideas, and we can all contribute to that. So I do feel that it's such a unique kind of discipline in a way, and we can delve into it as much or as little as we want. And, you know, it's never too late to start with something. So, you know, if a 60-year-old wants to, you know, think, oh, you know what, I actually just want to now start playing the piano. I want to learn how to play the piano, or I want to learn how to play the violin or the ukulele or the accordion or the flute or something. Let that happen. You know, let there be a possibility for that to happen. And I think as we're living longer and we're wanting to work longer, you know, we want to feel as though we're contributing to society. So the more we can keep ourselves mentally and physically active, then music is a great way to do that.
Thank you very much for joining us here today. It's been brilliant speaking to you. Well, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Cheers.
Last week, during our film training, we witnessed climate activists from group This Is Rig protesting outside the Scottish Parliament building. Here's the footage we recorded showing what happened.
Hi, I'm Keir. I'm with the Scottish Youth Film Foundation. I'm standing outside the public entrance to the Scottish Parliament, where 4 protesters have sprayed paint and glued their hands to the ground, preventing entrance to the building. The protesters, members of the group This Is Rigged, levelled criticism towards Rishi Sunak and the UK government for the 100 new licences approved yesterday.
It is our Scottish government's duty to stand up to Tories in Westminster, or people are going to lose their lives.
The protest started at 1:30, forcing the Parliament to shut to the public for the rest of the day. However, it is currently in recess for the summer, making the disruption to MSPs more limited. Those impacted by the closure were mainly tourists who could not visit the building or attend any tours, as well as contractors unable to re-enter Parliament. We asked some spectators what they thought.
Just wondering what your opinion is on the protest and the manner in which they are protesting.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great way to protest, honestly. It's very visual and striking and peaceful, which is really important. Yeah, I think they're doing a really good thing, a very brave thing, and essentially, yeah, trying to pressure the Scottish Government into actually standing up for the people that it's meant to govern.
Our future is unlivable, but we can look at history and they can tell us how to win, and it is through civil disobedience. It is ordinary people standing up and saying, I want a future, because we deserve that.
I think peaceful protestation are good, but I don't know if it works.
Yes.
I think both of them are good, violent too. But I think to make change things, it needs to be like sometimes a bit violent too.
Hard life. I work less on the oil.
By 4 p.m., the number of police had risen to approximately 20 officers, and the amount of police vehicles had risen to 8, with around 60 to 100 tourists gathering round.
We do not have time to wait. We are running out of time.
A day later, the building is currently back to the way it was. Will these protests escalate if the government fails to take further action?
Hi, I'm Jake, and today we've got people here, Keir and Ivan, who were there to witness the protest as it happened. So, boys, having only been out there to practice for this week, how did it feel to suddenly be covering a real news story?
Well, it was a real surprise. You know, we were only out there training for the work we were going to be doing this week, so there was no real suggestion that we'd have to do anything that sort of intense, I guess. But it was, I guess, a happy surprise. It was an interesting thing to be a part of, definitely.
Yeah, it was confusing because the paint all over the place, and we were like, huh? what on earth is happening?
Well, the next question is, what was your first reaction? We've already got Ivan's, so
Well, I guess mine was also shock. I think I froze a bit seeing it, because obviously with a camera you should be running towards that, but I just sort of stood still, and eventually Ivan grabbed the camera and sort of like both of us sprinted towards the protest.
Getting dragged along, basically. Yeah. Do you think that disruptive protests and demonstrations are effective?
Well, I think definitely, just in terms of the coverage that protests got, the attention, the crowd, I think it's definitely one way of, making yourself heard even. Whether you agree with the message or not, it's definitely a good way to get a message across.
Like, it's long, do not hurt somebody, why not? It's fun, so.
Was this your guys' first time witnessing or experiencing a protest?
Well, for me, I've seen one or two. I've seen a protest against a film at the university, but nothing that close, I think,
I've seen protests against the Ukrainian government in 2014. This one was more peaceful, I would say. Quite more peaceful.
Well, that's fair enough, Ivan. I'd like to thank you, the both of you, Keir and Ivan, for coming onto the show and doing this interview for me. So, next up, we're talking to the curator of the WordPress Photo exposition.
Hi, I'm Rachel Henderson and I'm here at the installation of the WordPress Photo. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what WordPress Photo is?
Thank you, Rachel. Nice meeting you. I'm Mariana Hetori Batista. I'm manager and curator of WordPress Photo. The WordPress Photo is a foundation that was founded 70 years ago and is a foundation dedicated for press photojournalism. And it's based on photography and bringing every year the stories that matter to a large audience.
So how is it important having these visual aspects in news today and telling people about what is going on in the world? How does it impact?
So I think photography is a way to engage. I think we live in a very visual world in which we are engaging with images all the time, and the impact of an image, especially when we talk about photojournalism, we are talking about images that becomes archival and important sources of information. We have many images that were awarded at WordPress Photo. They are now in history books and well known by many people around the world.
So obviously the last year we've seen a lot of things happen in the media going across all the 7 continents. So how has this year the submissions been different from previous?
So I think this year what was a key topic that arrived to the jury about last year's news, the Ukraine war. Apart from that, we also have stories about climate change, the oil spill in Peru. We have stories about the rise of the sea level in Egypt and other stories that I invite everyone to come and check.
So what would you say to young people who are trying to get into photography? What advice would you give them?
Well, come to the exhibition because I think you can get many different angles and sources of inspiration about how to tell a story, what is the storytelling in documentary photography and photojournalism. And I think in the exhibition you can see different types of editing and different ways of approaching a story.
So where and when will people be able to see this amazing exhibition?
The exhibition opens on the 5th of August at the Scottish Parliament in Edinburgh.
Thank you.
It's an absolutely amazing exhibition that can only be seen at the Scottish Parliament, so I definitely recommend you get along. I'm now joined by Erin, who had a rather interesting interview this morning.
So this morning I had the pleasure of interviewing Liz Lloyd, former Chief of Staff and Strategic Advisor to Nicola Sturgeon. Here's the first half of the interview now. Hi everyone, it's Erin from the Scottish Youth Film Foundation, and today I'm joined by Liz Lloyd, former Chief of Staff and Strategic Advisor to First Minister Nicola Sturgeon. Thank you for coming in today. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and the work you did at the Scottish Government?
So I was Chief of Staff, Senior Advisor to Nicola Sturgeon for 8 years. and I've worked in Scottish Parliament, Scottish politics for nearly 20 years.
Wow.
On all kinds of politics, working mainly for the working only for the SNP, and I've done media work, I've done policy work, I've done the whole lot.
Wow, that sounds great. So how did you first start working in politics?
Kind of by accident. I sort of wanted to work here. I was around when the Parliament was being built, and I thought, oh, this would be like a great place to work. But I had a friend who was working for a member of the Parliament, and a different MSP had a job going, and he said, you should apply for this. Oh, do this. And we'd worked together before, and to my great surprise, I got it. And then I've just been here ever since.
So what were you responsible for as strategic advisor?
So my job was to think about how the government should tackle like the big challenges that we face in Scotland and that the world faces. So for a lot of the last 12, 18 months, I worked on climate change and net zero and how we transform our energy system and what we need to do as a society to tackle climate change. But also I'd work on issues like child poverty, or I'd work with the First Minister on her speeches or her sort of media interviews, and just try and help her direct the government.
So what challenges did you face when you were working in strategic communications, and how did you overcome these?
In communications, the big challenge is trying to get people to listen to you. People hear a lot from the government, they hear a lot from politicians, and you have to find a way to like communicate so that people really hear what you're saying. So I worked during the pandemic on the daily briefings that the First Minister would give every day. And so we had to find something new to say every day. We had to find the same way to tell everyone to stay at home and to take precautions every single day without being so boring that people turned off. So some of those briefings you would have seen, like, although they were really serious subjects, they might have had a sort of jokey, light-hearted atmosphere between the people who were on the stage, because that kept people watching. And you just think of interesting ways to do sort of TV adverts that told people what to do, or just different ways of grabbing people's attention. But it was like during that time, 18 months of trying to tell people the same thing every day is really quite hard.
Yeah, I can imagine. And what about Brexit? Did that have a big impact on your work
It did.
as well?
Yeah, I don't think, if I think about when Nicola Sturgeon became First Minister in 2015, we had all these plans, and then Brexit came along, and then a pandemic came along. So they kind of got in the way of some of the plans that we had. Brexit was really difficult because you weren't in control of it. As a government, the UK government was in control, and you knew that people didn't want it. They hadn't voted for it in Scotland. So you just had to try and bridge protecting Scotland from the impacts of Brexit and supporting what the people had voted for with working with the UK government to try and minimise the damage and put legislation in place and regulate for it. But it was chaos as well, because the UK government was changing all the time. So you didn't, one day you'd be, all right, you're going to regulate in this way, and the next day it'd be like, we've completely changed our minds. New Prime Minister, we're doing something different. So there was a lot of running to keep up a lot of the time, a lot of late nights, late votes in Westminster that you had to watch, and just having to react to situations that you didn't expect.
Yeah, it sounds very, very busy. So would you be able to tell me a bit about some of the policies you're most proud of from your time?
Which ones am I most proud of? I think the government's commitment to climate change as a whole, I'm really proud of. And this hasn't come to pass yet, but there will be huge numbers of offshore wind farms going up across Scotland, in the seas off Scotland. And I think that's got potential to be really transformational. So really proud of that. The child payment, which gives money to families that are living in poverty to help support children to not be living in poverty. That's made a real impact in people's lives. So you have fewer families in Scotland using food banks because the government's giving them this support. So I think that's really important. And childcare. So childcare is now free for much more time than it was before. And I think that's got a real contribution to make to the economy, but also just to society. And I think that really helps women who want to go back to work and make sure that we can have a more equal society.
So, Erin, what was it like interviewing Liz Lloyd?
It was really interesting just to hear about her time in the Scottish Government and what she thinks are the
kind of biggest issues the world is facing at the moment, and also how to engage more young people in politics as well.
Yeah, I guess she's had such an extensive career. There was so much to talk
There's a lot
about.
to talk about,
Yeah. Well, the next piece we have is a sit-down interview with Dr. Elizabeth Cripps, and she was a panellist on the urgency of COP28. This was a piece I was especially happy to be able to sit down and learn about, because I had the pleasure of working on COP TV, where we broadcasted during COP26. So here's how that interview went. Hello, today I'm joined with Dr. Elizabeth Cripps. So could you give me a little introduction about yourself and your background?
Yep, I'm a political moral philosopher and writer, so I'm a senior lecturer at the University of Edinburgh. I've also written some general audience books, including one in 2022, What Climate Justice Means and Why We Should Care.
Thank you. So how do you find motivations surrounding climate change when the UK government continuously are licensing hundreds of new oil and gas projects on the North Sea?
It's extremely disheartening to see this happen. I mean, there's this complete disjunct between what climate justice clearly requires and what the UK government is prepared to do. I do find it encouraging that there is so much climate activism, that the younger generation are really recognise this. Of course they do, because they're the ones who are most impacted, but we're also seeing older generations really recognising this and being prepared to protest. So that in itself is encouraging, but it shouldn't be having to happen. This is happening because the government has failed to protect the next generation of citizens, and that's why they're having to protest so much.
What are your thoughts on COP26 Glasgow Climate Agreement's failure to set any funding for the loss and damage reparations, having it being pushed to COP27?
Again, I mean, this is a clear-cut failure of climate justice. Rich countries who have caused so much of climate change, who are in a position to help, should be doing this. They have a very morally clear-cut responsibility to do this. So it is deeply disappointing. It's of course good to see that there was then a loss and damage fund established in the next COP, but the devil as always is in the detail. We will have to see what transpires. It's great to see some countries, including Scotland, leading the way by making contributions, but we need a lot more and we need it fast.
The small things that individuals do, such as riding a bike or changing their diet, do they have an impact, or are we still waiting to see more from the big corporations?
I guess the answer to that to some extent is both. I mean, I think there's a very dangerous narrative that corporations and governments like to put forward, which kind of pushes all the responsibility on the individual. And I think we have to be absolutely clear here that it is the corporations, the fossil fuel companies who have caused a huge proportion of global emissions. It is the big governments of powerful states who have failed to act. That's where the responsibility lies. And that's where I think as individuals, the most important thing we can do is use our voice to push for collective action.
Do you think that climate groups taking more radical action is the correct way to get the public to listen and politicians?
I think civil disobedience is part of a portfolio of actions that we can take. So when I talk about being a climate activist, I think there's a huge range of things that we can do, from using litigation, from more conventional lobbying of politicians, from writing articles, signing petitions, going on marches, all the way through to civil disobedience. I think, and there is some evidence, I'm not a social scientist, but among what I've read, there is evidence that a kind of mixture of strategies can have a big effect. I think from a moral point of view, civil disobedience is justified when the government is failing to uphold its half of the contract and protect its citizens, but there is a very clear moral dividing line between peaceful and non-peaceful action.
So what are your thoughts on the location for COP28? Obviously the previous year it being in Egypt, and now this year Dubai.
I am hesitant to judge the next COP before it's happened. I hope that we can get some really good progress from it. The fact that the president of the COP is so deeply involved in the oil industry is discouraging, to say the least.
Blast from the past for you there, Rachel, having worked on COP TV before?
I will say it is great to be back doing all this again. Slightly stressful, but it's all right. So coming up tomorrow, we will be discussing Ukraine, the future of broadcasting, activism, and a sit-down interview with Michael Portillo.
That's all from us tonight. We hope to see you again tomorrow. Goodbye.